mic? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this media launch of Anti-Corruption Week 2021. Something that the Defend Our Democracy campaign will be pioneering. My name is Nishan Bolton. I serve on the executive of the Defend Our Democracy campaign. I work for the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, though. Today I was asked by somebody in the media, why is there a necessity for a week like this? And you only have to see the darkness across the country to understand the impact of corruption. We are where we are with this load shedding, partly or mainly contributed to by acts of corruption and capture. We have now seen unofficially over 300,000 people having died from COVID. A significant amount of those lives could have been saved had we prevented COVID-19 corruption. We've just emerged from local government elections where I think the coverage over the last month or so has been phenomenal, just to highlight the collapse of local government across the country, by and large, again due to corruption. So my response was that as a country, we can make a noise on social media about this, or we can be silent observers to the ongoing destruction of our country. Or we have the option to be active, to be vocal, to be visible during a week which will hopefully serve as an activation for work that must be continued throughout the year and the decades ahead that such work will be required for. So we have a range of people here who will talk to us about this week, its significance. But more, as we kick off, let me ask the initiator, the convener of the Defend Our Democracy campaign, Reverend Frank Chikane, to do the official opening and welcome, and will then be followed by Zakira Vadi, the national coordinator of the campaign, to just talk to us about the week. And that will be followed by a number of civil society messages, as well as inputs from different sectors. And we will conclude with the reading of the press statement, as well as a poem by our national poet laureate, Wally Serote. Frank Chikane, Reverend, over to you.
Thank you very much. I would like to start by saying that this campaign, the launch of the week of dealing with corruption, comes from the Defend Our Democracy campaign. But there are many groups that have been dealing with this subject before even the Defend Our Democracy campaign came. And so it's meant to mobilize all people who have been involved in dealing with corruption and mobilize the people of South Africa to deal with corruption in this country. There are bottom lines about this, and I would like to say a few things about it. Corruption is broader than what people think it is. Some people think this is about morality and ethics and etc. Corruption destroys everything you can think of. Breaking the law to advantage yourself, it's corruption. Using your power to disadvantage poor people, it's corruption on its own. But it goes further that if you capture the state to serve your interest, it's the worst form of corruption. It makes the poor victims of what people do. I want to say something that I thought I must say when I did my public administration course. One professor came and said, there is corruption, the case studies we're going to use are from Africa. And it was in the United States. I said, why do you use Africa? Why can't you use the United States or some other country? And then he said to me, just read the material, you'll see why. And the conclusion we reached is that the poorer you are, the more hard corruption is. Those who are rich have got scope to do corruption and do whatever, they still survive. But if you are poor, you steal people's money, pension funds, or grants for poor people, or money that's supposed to be used to make roads, toilets, housing. It affects the poor more than anybody else. And the people in this country who practice this corruption are mainly privileged people in the main and enrich themselves at the expense of the people. And this is what we would want to stop. We can't have a country where you've got sewer running in the street and they tell you it can't be fixed, or potholes in the streets and you can't fix them. But I think the most dramatic for me in our visit to Limpopo roadshow as Defend Our Democracy was actually the story about billions that have been spent to build dams. And then they spend money to have pipes laid down throughout. And then there's no water going through. And the money is gone, but there's no water. And I think it is of vital importance to understand that corruption is directly linked to the poverty conditions of our people in this country. We can deal with corruption, we can deal with poverty if all the money that is being stolen is used to take care of the interest of the people in terms of their needs. And so we are here to launch this week, which is the 3rd to the 10th, to focus, just put a spotlight on corruption. And I would like to say in my introductory remarks, and we can listen to other people, we need to reach a stage where corrupt people fear honest and ethical people in government and private sector than the way it is now. As it is now, the fear is amongst those who deal with corruption. The risk of being killed is higher, whereas they should be worried about us arresting them. But they never get arrested, and they kill people. And we've got, these whistleblowers, and now we've had this unfortunate story about Anthol. People have to even leave the country to run away because they exposed corruption, and now they are vulnerable. Even the killings related to elections, it's about corruption. Because if I want to go in there and be part of the corruption process, and somebody is likely to win the election, I must kill him so that I can put a person I need to serve my interest. I must say I'm still shocked in this country that there would be candidates who are killed going into as candidates for an election. And then there's no noise about it. In fact, I just read that the 3 candidates who have been killed, who were assassinated, won the election People voted for them, but they are in the grave. We're going to have by-elections to fill those positions. Why were they killed? It's because of corruption. It's because of rotten people in this country. We need to create a situation where every South African is going to take on corruption. So I would like today to call on the people of South Africa that we can't be overwhelmed by corrupt people. We're going to make sure that we overwhelm them. And every corner where we find them, we're going to expose them. And we need to call on all South Africans to make it their project. And once we do that, we'll defeat corruption. And I am convinced that that's what we need to do as people of South Africa. And so I would like to welcome all of you. I'm done with my part. Thank you very much.
One of the big tools that should have been in place to have helped in the fight against corruption is what is a kind of a blacklisting that would be hosted by National Treasury, that would have the listing of all companies who have been found wanting in terms of their acts of corruption and who have gone through the legal processes. That list is empty. That list doesn't have anybody featured on there. Now, you have, if you just take the PPE scandals in this country, it means that every one of those companies that the SIU and others have taken to court and where they have been having to repay the money, they're not blacklisted. So officially, they can go and continue with business across government. Now, I think it indicates that there's a lot of words, whether it's whistleblowers, whether it's action against corrupt companies, has not followed through by action. There is supposed to be a national anti-corruption strategy. Where it is, what it means, how it's supposed to be working, how we all participate in implementing that strategy is a state secret. And I think it's about time that through this week, we begin to find ways of not only being active in taking on corruption, but finding ways of holding those who have a responsibility to coordinate and to lead and to manage and to resource anti-corruption work accountable. Otherwise, I think, as you've seen in these elections, people are withdrawing from a democratic process, and it can only get worse unless, I think, we begin to change the status quo with regards to how we respond and deal to issues of corruption. MEC Mamabolo, thank you very much for your presence here as well, and to everybody else who have joined us here. I'm handing over to Zakira Vadi just to take us through what this week is about.
Thank you very much. So Anti-Corruption Week will be from the 3rd to the 10th of December this year. So why we're launching this today is we want people to obviously prepare their activations. These are self-initiated activations that we hope people will take on based on today's press briefing and comms work that we will do following today. So Anti-Corruption Day is marked annually on the 9th of December every year. It is a global event. And we thought that in a build-up to the 9th this year, we should pioneer a week so that there is some build-up activities. And the purpose of this week is to draw the linkages between corruption and capture and the lived experiences of people on a day-to-day basis. And one of the examples that was provided earlier was the load shedding. There's numerous others that I think some of the speakers here will refer to. Uniting and mobilizing South Africans in demonstrating their opposition to and disapproval of corruption and the lack of accountability when it comes to issues of corruption and capture. And lastly, linked to that is demanding from government an efficient response to capture and corruption. There needs to be some sort of plan of action to deal with the scourge. There are 3 themes that are kind of consolidated under one core theme, and the core theme is United in Action Against Corruption. So we have accountability. People need to be accountable. Previously, we've made the call for orange overalls for the corrupt. That's a call that needs to be reiterated during this week, and we need to be seeing more of that. The second thing is transparency. We know, for example, there was a reference to PPE-related corruption. So there needs to be, for example, we need to know who are the owners of companies. It's called beneficial ownership. We need to know that. We need to know about party funding now that the Party Funding Act is in place. There needs to be lifestyle audits of all public representatives. And then the last sub-theme is around recovery with integrity. Last year, the UN put out this theme in light of global PPE corruption. And that's the call that we are making this year as well, recovering from COVID-19 with integrity. There are 5 sectors that we're looking at because we think that these are the big issues that are affecting people on a day-to-day basis. The one is the health sector and the example of PPE-related corruption. The energy sector, there are issues there that I think if you look at the car power ships, the lack of transparency around it. Water and sanitation, and the NCDF, Ntwane Community Development Forum, is here today. And will tell us a little bit about some of the water-related issues that they face in their community. Municipal-based corruption, so Eastern Cape Stadium, alleged corruption there. There are numerous other cases in different municipalities. And then protection of whistleblowers and honest public servants. I think today's news is something that we can refer to, the killing of Babita Deokaran, the VBS whistleblowers in Limpopo province, and many others. The key dates. So today is the media launch. On the 3rd of September, we hope to host a civil society lecture that will outline some of the key themes, the messaging for the week, and provide an analysis of issues of corruption in the country. The 5th of December, we've put in an application to the city of Tshwane for, sorry. We've put in this application and we're hoping that we'd be able to get some form of approval for it. But we are planning to walk to Pretoria, to the union buildings, and deliver a memorandum to a representative of the presidency. And then December 9th, someone from the Kathrada Foundation, Nabila, will speak about the work that the ACAF is doing to bring back the Guptas and hold them accountable here. And then lastly is Corruption Watch and the whistleblower perceptions report that will come out on the 9th as well. So this is just a skeleton. There's numerous other organizations that will be doing different forms of activities during the week. And the appeal to the public is to do your own work. You can do a picket, you can host a webinar, a workshop in your community, probing local budgets. And through that, begin to see countrywide mobilization, be it at a church, a school, university, a youth club in your area. So hopefully, by the end of the week, we want to have 30 self-initiated activations in different parts of the country. That's just some of the visuals for the week. By the end of the week, we want to pioneer this as a concept. So hopefully, in 2022, we will see the second week of this kind. Renewed public mobilization around issues of capture and corruption. Focus national attention on the issue of capture and corruption. Promoting the work of the Defend Our Democracy campaign, and Reverend Chikane made reference to the range of other organizations that have been doing sterling work with regards to tackling capture and corruption. And then building a local base of anti-corruption workers. So in different communities, how do we activate people to take up the issues in their own communities? Importantly, this week is about blowing the whistle on corruption. As important as it may be for people working in state-owned entities, public servants to blow the whistle, even though it comes at tremendous risk to their lives and their careers, ordinary people can blow the whistle. So if you stop by a cop on the road and you asked for a bribe, you need to blow the whistle. It's as much as your responsibility, as their responsibility in state-owned entities, public servants, as it is your own. And those are our details. As the week progresses, we'll be putting out a national diary of events that the media can look forward to. If you're in a different province, we are streaming live today, so there's people from different areas that have been watching. You'd be able to log in your event in the diary on our website, and that will be featured closer to the week. There'll also be other activations that may be taking place, and those announcements will be made online. There's an online pledge on the website as well, and a toolkit, so all of the posters that you see here in your own area, you'll be able to print it out, spread the word, and the hashtag that we're using is Unite Against Corruption. Thanks.
Thanks, Akira. We can be proud as a country of the work that civil society organizations have done over the last decade or more in not only writing about corruption and state capture, but actually doing the work to stem the tide. The court cases, the pickets, the demonstrations, the marches, the pressure onto parliament, the pressure onto major political parties. And we are where we are today with, I think, the possibilities of doing even more because of the pioneering work done by some of those who will now speak for about 3 minutes. Kicking off with Wayne from OUTA. I think everybody's familiar with the work that I think OUTA has done. Much of it, I think, just huge pressurizing work, significant legal and other victories. Over to you, Wayne. Your 3 minutes. Is there a mic there? Yeah.
Should I sit here? You just sit here. Is it all right? Hi. Just made a few notes. So thank you to Zakira and the team for putting this together. I think it's an excellent initiative. I think what we would like to do is just ask a few questions. You know, firstly, we don't believe that government and big business, by the way, who's the other side of the corruption coin when it comes to procurement, is really doing enough meaningfully and seriously to fight corruption. There's very little action. There's a lot of lip service, right from the president down, and through all the oversight entities that exist at provincial level and local government level. We do not see meaningful address in arresting corruption. Many corporate leaders talk about their internal efforts to fight corruption, but really, what are we seeing taking place? What is actually happening? What are they doing? And so we sit here today with whistleblowers feeling alienated. They're left out in the cold. They are murdered. They have to leave this country, and they have to fend for themselves. And that shouldn't be the case in this day and age. Here in nearing 2022, after nearly 3 decades of our hard-fought democracy, we shouldn't be here where we are today. And we ask the question of why does it feel like civil society is having to push the anti-corruption agenda so hard for so long? It's an uphill battle. And we see little meaningful advancements from the state, from the oversight institutions, the prosecuting authorities, when it comes to holding perpetrators to account. And we're not talking small amounts, we're talking massive fraud, we're talking massive corruption. And we're talking about evidence that has been led in the Zondo Commission through civil society, referrals that are made to the police, to the NPA, to the Hawks, to SARS, and so many other oversight institutions, and yet we see a handful, literally a handful of people being held to account. Why is that? The compelling evidence is so big and there's so much of it, and yet we sit here 2.5 years after the new administration has been brought into power, after new heads of those hollowed out states and agencies and state institutions that we understand have been decimated and lack capacity. But it's 2.5 years now, and we've been patient, and we've been making excuses, and we've been saying the arrests are coming, and they're not. Nothing is actually happening when you think about it, right from national to provincial to local government level. So we ask ourselves, why is the criminal justice system taking so long to bring perpetrators of state capture to account? Why is it that we have MECs at provincial level in COGTA that jump to the defense of errant councils that have been held accountable by courts, that have been set aside in Makanda, They jump to the defense of the councillors and not to the defense of the people who brought those legal cases to have those councils set aside. Why are we seeing in places like Mashisheng, before the local elections, local councils hollowing out the assets of those local municipalities, and it's been brought to the attention of MECs in the provinces and nothing happens. Everybody looks away. And they have the power to take action. So, you know, the time for excuses and the time for delays is over. We need to see sincere engagement with civil society. And while we might be part of the National Anti-Corruption Forum, we have, as a concerted effort through the coalition of civil society organizations, written to the National Anti-Corruption Forum to say this pace is far too slow. Far too little is happening. And the fact that civil society has less and less role to play, a meaningful oversight role in the national anti-corruption strategy, is a concern for us. So what we need now is action. And at ARTA, we sincerely believe that this gathering hopefully is the catalyst to more meaningful and substantial mobilization in the fight against corruption. And if the state wants to leave this drive in the hands of civil society, then they must understand and forgive us when we make ourselves heard in a louder fashion. But you know, it's an excellent call for mobilizing, for taking now to marches, to protest action. But we shouldn't be having to be doing this. We really shouldn't. The time for meaningful, concerted efforts in the fight against corruption by the state, because it's their work, it shouldn't be ours, is now. It's long overdue, and it's been costing this country far too long now. And ARTA is very much in support of this initiative. Thank you again to yourselves, Nishan, and the team at Akbikatrada Foundation and the Defend Our Democracy for this excellent work.
Thanks, Wayne. Moketsi, Manaing, Right to Know campaign. Again, another organization that has really been doing sterling work, keeping the focus on information, access to information, and the denial of that access. Over to you, Moketsi.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting us. My name is Moketsi. I am the Right to Know organizer here in Gauteng. Well, I am very, very excited to be sitting here with the gurus who have been fighting corruption left, right, and center. I observed as well during the state capture when everyone was giving evidence. And I think we can all agree that there is massive corruption in this country. A few years back, we joined Corruption Watch to challenge the Seriti Commission. And even now, as you can remember, or if you're still aware, the case for President Zuma is still in court. I think I'm joining my comrade there asking whether the government is doing enough. I did not prepare much in terms of the speech because I thought 3 minutes doesn't need that much of preparation. But sitting here now, I see that I had to prepare more than I did. So, PPE scandal. We've been going to the Department of Health, fighting, protesting, picketing, trying to highlight the danger of corruption within that department. But I think we all know that someone was murdered. So if we're talking about corruption, we're not only talking about the waste of money that is happening. We're also talking about the waste of human life that is happening. We are also talking about activists being targeted and killed. We have all observed that some whistleblowers have had to run away from the country. Some are not getting any support, but that's the result of corruption. We can talk about corruption and talk about something as small as cash for jobs. It was evident, especially now during campaigning season, when all these politicians were saying, in my municipality, no one will be getting jobs for sleeping with someone or for paying for that. That's the evidence enough that corruption is there, and they're all admitting it. But are they doing enough in order to deal with it? I don't think so. But the human life that gets wasted, people who blow the whistle, who die because of trying to be activists, I think that's something that we need to consider. We, as Right to Know, we are an activist-led organization. And as an activist-led organization, you know, when you see the activists dying, you're losing human capital. You're losing someone who can stand with you or by you on the trenches. But we find those people dying because of corruption. The money that we are losing through corruption is more than enough. I think there wouldn't be any poverty within this country if there was no corruption. So we support the call. We are with you. We will also be marching on the 9th. I guess you will get the details when we do so. We are also planning to have dialogues within communities talking about corruption, how corruption is affecting us in local municipalities, before we can talk about how it is affecting us on a national level, because we believe that's where corruption is happening more than enough. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Thank you. Corruption Watch? Oh, okay. Corruption Watch joins this list of, I suppose, illustrious NGOs, civil society organizations. Their reports in this year in particular, I think, have been huge revelations. Just the minute details, whether it's SGBs, whether it's police work, Corruption Watch has done the work to probe it and to provide the kind of empirical evidence that would be needed by anybody who doubts that this is a national problem that requires, I think, a large-scale national solution.
Good day. Thank you, everybody. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matsidi Sojibakwani, and I am an attorney at Corruption Watch. I'm sitting here on behalf of my head of legal, who's currently in Cape Town. So Corruption Watch is a non-profit organization which was incepted in 2012, and how we do our work is through receiving reports from the public, reports of corruption. These reports inform most of the projects and the work that we do, which varies from mining work, which I'm particularly based with, or I do a lot of with my colleague, and we also do police work, we do schools-related work, procurement, health. It varies depending on how much reports we receive from the public. Depending on how many reports we received from the public, and we then investigate that. So I think the most important thing for this day is to just confirm that Corruption Watch supports the initiative and calls on various communities, all civil society organizations to participate and be a part of this initiative and ensure that We call government to account, that we call for transparency and accountability, that we do not sit in our spaces and hope for solutions to come from anywhere else, but to make sure that as communities, as various stakeholders and a civil society organization, we come through and we make sure that our voices are heard in making sure that there's accountability in the space. As part of the initiative, Corruption Watch will, as it has been mentioned, will be releasing the report, the Whistleblower Perception Report, on the 9th of December. It is currently ongoing, and people are called to participate as well. This will help to inform information and give details about what the perception is essentially on corruption, on whistleblowing from various people. Thank you.
Thank you. Freedom Under Law is another one of those civil society organizations that needs no introduction. Nicole, who has been heading it up, next year moves to the Helen Suzman Foundation. But I'm sure that there will be continuity in this work, both from Freedom Under Law and the Helen Suzman Foundation. Over to you, Nicole.
Thanks, Nishan. Thanks, Zakira, and to the Defend Our Democracy campaign and the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation for putting in place this much needed and valued initiative. On the 23rd of August earlier this year, Babita Diakaran was gunned down outside her home, returning from having dropped her daughter off at school. There is little doubt that that was a targeted hit intended to silence her, to stop her making disclosures of the corruption that was happening within the Provincial Health Department. Whilst there have been some arrests of persons who are alleged to have pulled the trigger and carried out the assassination, it has been over 2 months now, and there are still no arrests of those who, in fact, sought to have this execution carried out. The middlemen, those who actually ordered this hit. And that level of impunity and lack of accountability must be enormously concerning to us, South Africans. I think sometimes confronted by the scale of corruption that we see in this country, we are sometimes inured to the actual consequences, but it's worth remembering that a young woman now grows up in South Africa without her mother, her mother having paid the ultimate price, only for having performed her job responsibly and ethically, and being brave and courageous enough to make the disclosures, to seek accountability of those who were abusing their positions of power in order to enrich themselves and their friends and cronies. Babita Diakaran, as we know sadly, is not the only whistleblower who paid the ultimate price. But it's worth noting that the assassination didn't come out of the blue. She had to face and confront a long-term, sustained attack on her, as is the case of so many public servants who seek to do their job ethically and responsibly. And we at Freedom Under Law know that only too well, having attempted to provide support to a number of public servants who have faced spurious charges, as Babita Diakaran did, relating to their conduct, who have been forced out of their jobs, hounded, faced persecution. And I think, whilst it is absolutely important that an initiative such as this seeks to call for and demand greater accountability of those who perpetrate corruption in our country, I think it can also be overwhelming at times and conducive to despair when we see that corruption. And as an antidote, it's worth remembering how many exceptional South Africans there are in public service who seek to provide service to ordinary South Africans. And that when they act responsibly and ethically, but enormously courageously, that we, the South African public, should be there to provide them with all the support that they require, and should honor them and ensure that they have the protection they need. Because as has been so terrifyingly demonstrated, those who seek to expose corruption face the most incredible danger. The purpose of my input today is just to say that Freedom Under Law obviously supports this initiative and very much wants to play our part. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. And I think it's worth just once more just repeating some of the words of Babita herself. In her message to me, one of which she was saying, I just want to tell you that not all of us in health are corrupt. Some of us are trying, but you see how they are trying to deal with us. Not knowing that dealing with us would be more than just the harassment that came through. Ntwane Community Development Forum has been fighting a valiant battle on the issue of water and water-related corruption in Limpopo. Noto Madisa is one of the people who has been dealing with this issue. Noto, over to you. Your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Program Director. Revolutionary greetings to organizers, Comrade Mama Bolo, media crews, pressure groups, and the audience. I'm Madisa Noto, representing Ntwane Community Development Forum. We abbreviate it as NCDF. Ntwane Community Development Forum defines corruption as a crime against public welfare. It's a serious infringement of fundamental rights, and it undermines the existing core values. It is for this reason that we stand in solidarity with the pressure groups who remained vigilant to uproot corruption that is depriving and threatening development and the dawn of democracy in our beautiful country. Fellow comrades, allow me to comment further about the project that was introduced in Mutse. In relation to the water draft relief intervention project in Limpopo, specifically Mutse, under the competency of Sekhukhune District Municipality and Lepelle Water Authority as implementing agent, we still reiterate accountability and transparency regarding 143 million that was injected by the then Minister of Water and Sanitation. That was in 14 February 2020. It is undisputed that the project was meant to be completed on the 6th October 2020, according to the scope of work. On the 16th September 2020, we received a letter indicating that an amount resulting 70 million was spent in that particular project. And as the concerned group or organization, we would like to know the fate of the outstanding amount of 60 million rand. In conclusion, the effect of corruption can have a negative impact on socio-economic and undermine the good governance. The recent survey by Afrobarometer of 2021 shows that public trust in government institution and oversight institution is very, very, very low. And there is a collaborative statement by Out of Order regarding overall performance of all municipalities across the country. In Limpopo, Elias Motsoaledi, local municipality, that is where I come from, is one of the worst performers, considering the fact that some of 48 of those previously identified as problem. We are not going to fold our arms and become spectators in our own arena. We are moved by the following utterances that were made by one of the whistleblowers, who said, "I was not afraid of speaking, and I'm still not afraid of speaking," said the whistleblower. As an organization, we are moved by the utterances of this whistleblower, knowing very well that whistleblowers are confronted by a lot of challenges. We applaud the swift reaction by the law enforcement agency for arresting the perpetrators who are now prosecuted in the court of law. The killing of whistleblowers and unfair treatment in working areas must cease with immediate effect. They deserve protection and massive support. We should not relegate our fundamental rights to any person or to any institution. I thank you all.
The July insurrection has its roots and linkages directly to corruption. Across the country, people rose up to defend their communities, to defend infrastructure. One of those is Untitled Lux, who thought it necessary, thought it important to organize the people of Soweto, and particularly those around the Jabulani Mall, the Moponia Mall, and did that at huge personal cost and huge personal possible danger. And therefore, in Ntlantla, your presence here is especially welcome.
Permission to stand up? Thank you. Good day, everyone. My name is Ntlantla Lux. I'm from Soweto. I represent all young people. And if you want to understand who young is, 45 down. Youth is 35 down. Young is plus 10. On a serious note, I think that moment in time of looting was very unfortunate, but it was a fantastic platform for ordinary people to realize their power, because the politicians were not there to defend the malls and the jobs and the economy of Soweto. Ordinary people stood against the firing lines. The bullets came to us. The first two nights were the worst of my life. We were shot at heavy, with heavy fire. SEPs, law enforcement, not to isolate SEPs, they joined us after. Ordinary people of Soweto stood there to defend that mall. Defending that mall meant that we are defending an average of 2,000 jobs of our people in Soweto. Soweto and every other township and other communities for that matter are already in a state of collapse economically. So how dare we become spectators and allow that to continue even further? But for the young people listening at home and everywhere around this country, it's important to also realize that in that moment, in that critical moment of defense, it was young people who defended against the looters. That invincible force of looters that were carrying rifles from AK-47 to R5s were managed and were stopped by young people. Another point that is worth sharing is that corruption is exercised by the minority, not majority. If I use an example of corruption in politics, I must remind everyone that is here and watching it through the TVs that we've got less people in politics, we've got more people outside politics. How dare we scared of these people? How dare we scared of these people? And I hear that whistleblowers are dying left, right, and center. It's simply because of it is their last resort, these corrupt people, to instill fear in the rest of us. They're not killing them because of any other reason. People are being killed because the rest of us, it must be an example so that we must be scared. So you have the opportunity to be scared or act in defense or in honor of those that get killed and actually take the responsibility of uniting outside race or religion against these people and take this country forward. Because what I know is that there's a revolution of young people that most of you will only realize and start respecting and taking serious when you see it with your own eyes, because that's how you've been conditioned as human beings. But it's there. Some of us are on the ground day and night. We see what's going on. That revolution is there. Not it's coming, it's there. It's also in this room holding the mic. We are here. And as young people, again outside, race and religion. Because one thing that young people of South Africa are going to do, that we have started, we're not going to inherit the hate from the old people. You guys have lived in a tough time where you experience the hate. The only reason why I must be full of hate is if I inherit the hate. I didn't experience the hate. And that doesn't mean I'm not respecting where this country comes from. But to move forward, young people, we're going to unite outside everything else and make sure that we hold each other's hands and move forward and take this country to where it's supposed to be. There's no reason why the rand to dollar must be at the pathetic rate it's at. Why can't we have a 1-to-1 ratio? It's unfortunate the bus is gone for you, the older people. You've been conditioned that it's normal. So you must wake up and it must be okay. The petrol price must keep increasing. Some of us, we are different animals. We are different animals, and we're going to make sure that in our lifetime, not yours, because yours, our lifetime, we're going to make sure that the kids in America and in Europe, they look at Africa, they look at South Africa, and become a place where they all want to go to. That's what we're going to do. We are not scared of corruption. You can call me a whistleblower, you can call me, it doesn't matter what you title me. What is important is that we are amongst the young people that organize people in townships and across the country to go confront drug dealers' houses, because we are not scared. To go and confront the councillor's house and the councillor's system of corruption that happens in a township. We confront them. We are not scared. So there's a classic old song that says, Makwala acheche, Ronarta yagopil, which literally direct translation means that if you have a problem of fear, please step aside, because fear is it's contagious. When you are here full of fear, you're going to get all of us to be full of fear, and you know who wins when you're all scared? The corrupt officials. So those who are leading corruption, I want to tell you, if no one is telling you, that your time is up. Maybe you are not realizing it too because you want to see it, but your time is up. The young people of this country are going to ensure that anything that is corrupt within my space of reasoning or my space, my physical space, is dealt with. And if someone's going to send someone to shoot me, best believe that their head is hitting the pavement before mine. Don't ask me how, but that's what's going to happen. So, in conclusion, I am encouraging everyone not to inherit the fear, the hate. There's more of us than them. There's no way that they are winning. They've said it's a propaganda. It's not reality that they are winning. They're not winning anything. It's a matter of being intentional and deliberate, especially from those who have given power through voting. They don't have that intentional spirit and deliberate spirit to make a difference. But how dare I expect them to have anything of that nature if half the time it's them in the firing in the end of corruption? I may be speaking as a youngster, maybe I don't know enough, maybe someone saying, hey man, this kid is stupid. Maybe you must look in the mirror, maybe you're the one that's stupid for normalizing this that we call life. This can't be life. So with that said, I wish I had more time. My name is Untitled Chapter, and I'm sure you'll hear more from young people on how we should take this country forward, because the older people clearly failed. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hand over to another young person who, Reverend Chikane, you might recall, you might not recall as well, if we go according to Nhlanhla. But there was a webinar on understanding the damage, the extent of the damage done by the Guptas to this country. At that webinar, you made a call for us to consider a global campaign to bring back the Guptas to stand trial. I'm happy to say that that has been acted on, and Nabila will report now.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton, and good afternoon to everyone here. Firstly, on behalf of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, I'd like to take this moment to commend the Defend Our Democracy campaign for pioneering this anti-corruption week. This is truly a crucial moment in our fight against corruption. Under state capture, we saw a total cost of 60 billion rand taken at the hands of the Guptas. 60 billion rand. In a country that is riddled with socio-economic and political ills, that money could have done so much in the fight against corruption. It could have done so much for our education department. It could have done so much in the fight for water and access to water. But instead, that money was plundered and looted. Under the Guptas and under state capture, we witnessed the systematic looting and plundering of our natural resources and our finances. We watched the destruction of state-owned enterprises, institutions that are critical for the functioning of our country, case in point, Eskom. For this reason, the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, on the 9th of December, will be launching the International Bring Back the Gupta campaign. This campaign will bring together a movement of global actors to unite behind a very simple and clear call. Bring back the Guptas, extradite them, and have them account for their crimes. The money that they take must be brought back as well. The campaign will be carried out from December and through to next year, December as well, where we will be carrying out various activations and activities across the globe that will seek to mobilize and advocate and lobby for the Guptas to be brought back. We will also be launching what we are deeming the Orange Book of Shame. And this Book of Shame is going to name and shame all of the associates and business people who helped the Guptas steal our money. But there's also a very critical element of this campaign, and it's the lives that were impacted. There were employees in these organizations whose lives were destroyed, and they deserve justice. So on the 9th of December, we will be launching this campaign. We will invite you to join that, either in person or virtual. We also, this coming Friday, will be launching our Bridge Brigades that will be taking place every Friday in the lead up to Anti-Corruption Week. The first one will be taking place at the Wits Bridge across the M1. And I think in conclusion, just to say that, this moment of us uniting is critical. I think time and time again, South Africans have shown that we are a people of resilience, people who stand up in the face of adversity. And it is time for us to show the criminals who think that they can run rampant with our country what our resilience can actually do. And that is develop a culture of anti-corruption. Thank you.
There, a number of young people, I think, have indicated their presence, their voice, and their commitment to being visible to take this particular aspect of our struggle further. Let me just check, Reverend Tembeleni is here? No? Okay, the next short segment are just short messages from different sectors. Rabbi Sar Shakir, your 3 minutes, sir.
Shalom, shalom. Dear friends, brothers and sisters, thanks for having us, including us. So I'm the only faith-based organization here. Yeah, Baba, I'm the only faith-based organization here now, today. No, I'm asking. So No. Then we speak on behalf of the church groups as well, not on their behalf, as part of. Our job is to give the wider context to what's happening here. And here's the wider context. The wider context is that humans were created by the Almighty to elevate the sky, to elevate the heavens. The Almighty invested in humans the power to redeem this world, who is broken and corrupted and heavily sick. And the Almighty has invested in us the power to redeem it. And the Almighty has no other partners but us, as sad as it sounds. In order to fulfill the words of the prophets, that nation shall not fight again, nor shall there learn of word of justice, that justice should go as a spring of water, and so on, that the word of justice and peace, the fulfillment of the words of the prophets, it will not come from the heaven all sorted for us. It is our job to make it done. And every generation has their challenges. This is what we face. We are not better than our ancestors. For sure, we are not better than them. This is our shift here. Now we're looking at the youngsters. Our duty is to inherit to them a little bit better. They will get a little bit better, and slowly, there is a movement toward that word of justice and peace. That's our job. That's what Almighty has invested in us. Now, different faiths has different ways to approach the divine. Now let me speak as a Jew. You know, in Christianity, for example, it's mainly about that miracle of God giving himself to humans. In Islam, it's about the submission to the divine law. We in Judaism, the formative value on that sense is the idea of justice, in the sense that God had revealed himself as justice, as laws for the community to manage itself. I say it again. God has manifested himself in the book of law, the Torah, and how it developed, for us to live according to these laws of life. And a major thing in that is how the society is to be managed. According to the laws, justice you should pursue. You shall not show partiality. You should not show face. Don't privilege the poor one. And so on, and so on. These are all kind of said in the scripture, not only in the Jewish, in all other, but in Judaism it's a strong display, because this is what God has, this is how God wants to be revealed as a just society, so that's our job to do it. So all those who fight for the just society, to me, they are priests. And the temple is the rightful society, the justful society we're striving for. Again, it will not come from heaven. So what I want to do is to share with you the priestly blessing. Today, the priestly blessing from the Torah in the Hebrew words. I'm going to share it with you, the priestly blessing. For all those who are acting against corruption and for righteousness and for deliverance, wherever you are, in all provinces, in all places in this country. Yevarechecha Adonai veishmerecha. May God save you and protect you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May God shine your face upon you and bless you. Isa Adonai panav elecha. May God lift up his face to you. V'yasem lecha shalom. May God grant you peace. Amen, so be it. Amen, so be it. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Shalom, shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi Shakir. A partner to the DOD against state capture, against corruption from 2015-16 onwards has been the Communist Party. Gauteng in particular, unflinching, have also led their own initiatives to take on many of the key aspects of capture in this country. So, MSc Mamabolo, Chair of the Gauteng Province of the Communist Party, over to you for your message, please.
Thank you. I follow in your example and stand. Now, firstly, on behalf of the South African Communist Party, I would like to sincerely greet the leadership that is here, all of you, and our sincere regards for this very important initiative, and we thank you for taking your time to be here. I'm standing here to convey a message on behalf of the South African Communist Party, and I must clarify that I'm not here as the MSC. I'm here on behalf of the SACP as the Provincial Secretary in Gauteng. But before I convey the message of the SACP, I just want to take this moment to share with you that when I was acting MEC of Health during a very difficult time, I had the opportunity to work with Babita Deokaran. I was the acting MEC. We brought her in to be the acting CFO. And today, I'd like to take the opportunity to dedicate this brief message to her. Having worked with her, I can assure you, she was a very humble, very dedicated, very professional public servant, the public servant of our ideals. And to her, I would like to assure her that we will fight to the end against corruption, and that we will never let her down. And to her killers, we will never rest until they rot in jail, until justice is done. To her family, I would like to convey our sincere support and that we are with them all the time. Now, comrades and friends, on behalf of the SACP, we really want to thank you very much. And of course, I must say, you know, we've been working with all the stakeholders that are here, all the parties, all the people that are here. The SACP has been in the forefront of the struggles against corruption. We have worked with the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation many times. One that will always stand out in my mind, and I'll never forget it, is when we gathered at the City Hall, when government couldn't organize the memorial service of Ahmed Kathrada, and we did. It was a very beautiful moment. It was a good moment together. And we have ran many campaigns together. So I'm standing here to just simply say the South African Communist Party and its entire membership commit to the call to take part and be part of the action in the week from the 3rd to the 10th of December this year. We will be actively participating in the anti-corruption week. We will be part and parcel of each and every activity. We will make sure that we bring all our members, we bring our leaders to fight corruption and to make sure that we push back the frontiers of corruption in our country. As you might be aware, and of course I'm aware of time, the SACP has been in the forefront of the struggle against corruption. We coined a concept of the corporate capture of the state. The then public protector, responding to our call for the establishment of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into Corporate Capture of the State, released a report and agreed with us that there was a need to institute a judicial commission. And the commission has been established, known as the Commission on State Capture. But otherwise, we remain very clear that we are dealing with the phenomena of corporate capture of the state. And we are part of this struggle because we understand the damage and the negative impact of corruption on the developmental capacity of the state. Our country has a low industrial base. We are an emerging democracy. Our economy is a semi-colonial dependent economy. And therefore, the developmental capacity of the state is very much important to improve the quality of lives of our people. And therefore, that's why, as the Communist Party, we are at the forefront and working with our comrades, with our partners, with many individuals in the front against corruption. And I would like to conclude by saying that as the South African Communist Party, we understand that the struggle and the fight against corruption is in many respects the struggle to defend our democracy. That is why the SACP is part of the Defend Our Democracy campaign, because this is not an isolated struggle. If we don't stand up, as all of you will do, our country, our democracy will degenerate and implode into very backward tendencies of all forms of hatred. Our country will go down. So we must stand up to defend our democracy by fighting against corruption. And as you know, I would like to commit, we will always be there, and we will always make sure that we are part and parcel of the Defend Our Democracy campaign. We will be there to bring back the Guptas. We need them here. They must be held criminally accountable and liable. And I would like to assure all of you that the entire membership of the SACP will be part and parcel of the struggle against corruption to defend, strengthen, consolidate our democracy. Thank you, Reverend. Thanks to all of you. Thanks, leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think your commitment here made Zakira smile, because on the 5th of December, we want to be marching in Pretoria. And Zakira was saying, but who's going to come? You've answered the question. Thank you very much. Comrade Popo, the last few weeks I've been reading the transcripts of the Delmas trial, because there's a lot of research that I've been doing there around the Transvaal Indian Congress and documents that you won't find anywhere but in that trial itself. But it reminded me of your own journey, not only from 76, but the UDF, that trial, and the subsequent building of democracy here today. Your own fight at PRASA, and today the efforts to try to rebuild Transnet, I think is a story of that at some point I'm hoping will be put out for everybody to understand the full details. But we await to hear your message here today. Thank you.
Program Director, Dr. Chikani, all of you comrades and colleagues who are present here. I'm feeling particularly emotional after I listened to Ntlantla and Nabila and now your last comment, and to get a sense that the fire of the youth that so much inspired us, the dynamism of the 70s, 80s, coming right up to the 90s is still there. What we have not been able to do is to harness it. I've been given 3 minutes, and you know I always struggle to have a short speech, but so I'm not going to give a speech, therefore. But congratulations for waging this Defend Democracy campaign. It couldn't have come at any appropriate moment than this one. It's a moment where the anti-democratic forces have intensified their assault on democracy. And that intensification is not merely expressed in what the looting that is taking place there. It is also expressed, manifest in critical economic installations of this country. So it has now moved to the next level of economic sabotage to make sure that we fail in this country. When Zakira read the sectors that are critical for this campaign, I was hoping to hear something about transport. Comrade Mamabolo, I'm surprised that you too have not mentioned it. Transport is very strategic. If you take PRASA, which faced assault over many years, and we fought, many people were quiet. Wayne and others were fighting, and yourselves in the Kathrada Foundation. PRASA has been brought to its knees now. It can't move. I used to travel from Soweto by train. If I was 5 minutes late, I would not get my train. Today, people wait 3 hours to 4 hours to get a train. Why? Because cables have been stolen. These days, they even steal the actual rail. They remove it, as if we are a banana republic. There's no state in the country. They do that. The result is that the trains can't move. The SACP should lead this campaign, Comrade Mamabolo. It is the challenge facing the working class in this country, because they use the train. The trains are affordable. Now they can no longer do so. The second one that relates to this sabotage is Transnet. Transnet is the biggest logistics company of the state. If you steal cables, Transnet cannot move the cargo that must go to the ports. We've got 9 ports all in this country, 16 if you include the dry ports. Your export goods cannot get out of the country. And that sabotage is waged by elements who promote corruption. They steal cable because somebody is willing to buy that cable. And as a state, we are not able to regulate who may use copper in this country. So we've got to deal with that issue. In fact, on Friday, I'm going to meet one engineer, and I think he's an expert on matters of copper. He used to work for Eskom. Eskom is not using him. I don't know why. But I'm going to talk to him to say, what is it that we can tell the government to do to stop this campaign of copper theft? Now, Transnet is a company that generates revenue of 72 billion when it operates properly. It is now we probably would be talking about 60% of the revenue that we should be generating, because our ports are not functioning properly, because the cranes are also being sabotaged. There's no proper maintenance by the cronies of those who steal from the poor people of this country. Your port terminals are not operating properly. So you got all of those things. And some of these cranes were sold to us by the Guptas for huge amounts of money. And some of them are not doing what we thought they were going to do. They sell you a crane that should lift 3 or 4 containers. It ends up lifting only 2. So we are dealing not only with corruption of just looting here and there, but the corruption that translates in economic sabotage. And that economic sabotage must lead to the escalation of violence, because young people in this country are unemployed. They qualify, they can't get jobs. If the economy cannot operate, everybody there'll be mayhem, there'll be lawlessness. So we've got to deal with that. Now, we have said here, the Zondo Commission has been there. Is there anything that's happening, Wayne? I know you have been fighting that campaign. There is a lot of work that is happening. The state apparatus had been hollowed out. They'd been hollowed out. The NPA, National Directorate of Public Prosecution, was weakened. It doesn't help you to take people to court if you cannot produce an effective case that will lead to the conviction of these people. These thieves are going to say it is a political campaign against them. I meet with the NPA regularly, the NDPP. I am aware of the cases that are underway. I think even yesterday, this Sunday, I was signing one of the affidavits for the matter that relates to Siangena, the 4 billion rands that was stolen at Prasa. Those cases are on. They will be coming. Sifambo and Siangena. Sifambo, work of investigations has been concluded. It's just a question of them getting dates for those cases. The Zondo Commission applied to the president to revise his terms of reference so that the evidence given at the commission could be shared with the law enforcement agencies. And it is happening now. Many cases have started. They include the cases of Transnet. Somebody was talking to me today who used to be at the Zondo Commission and is now with the NPA, saying, I am dealing with the cases that arose out of the evidence of Transnet given at the Zondo Commission. So there is a lot that is happening. We do expect that whilst the Zondo Commission cannot prosecute, but it will make recommendations to the president, parliament, and everybody. We should shift the paradigm in such a way that we create mechanisms that would ensure that the capture of the state and its institutions, as it happened right up to now, would not occur in the future. But of course, that would require the willpower, the courage from those who hold political office. We often hear people saying, we can't act against this corrupt individual and that one. We are still waiting for the Zondo Commission. The Zondo Commission is not going to help them about that. But we must push to get the law enforcement agencies to end. But the message to South Africans is that the Defense Democracy campaign is important. It's a campaign that all of us must be part of. Build street committees and self-defense units as we used to do in the mid-80s to the end of the 80s. Mobilize communities around those matters that relates to their lives so that they can defend that which is very basic to their own livelihood. Thank you very much.
Next up, Mark Haywood. Mark, I didn't know you were associated with a book that I'm just currently reading, From Anger to Action. And I would encourage many of you to go and read this as well. I think it's just a powerful analysis of the global mood as well as the global fight back by progressives and civil society across the world, not only on issues of climate change, but on every other social justice issue as well. Mark, you don't need any introduction here.
Thank you, Nishan, and good afternoon, everybody. I was asked to just say a few words about the impact of corruption on the health sector and what we are finding as journalists through investigations into the health sector. And I just want to start by lamenting that the health sector is one of the main troughs for feeding. It is one of the places where corrupt people see the best opportunities for theft and for getting away with theft. 10 years ago, Corruption Watch and Section 27 commissioned some research into the levels of corruption in the health sector. And in 2012, it was estimated that corruption was already costing 20 billion rand per annum in 2012. It's almost certain that that figure will have doubled or trebled since then. It has grown exponentially, and sadly we have seen that exponential growth at a moment of greatest crisis for our country during the COVID-19 pandemic, which I will come to in a minute. But what makes this particularly perverse and wrong is that corruption in relation to health is one of the best examples of the direct connection between theft and fraud and loss of life, disability, and loss of opportunity. If you assume corruption at a level of 50 billion rand per year, for example, that's more than the cost of our whole AIDS program, which keeps 5 million people alive and with access to antiretroviral medicines. We're losing that amount of money when we have no money for mental health care services in our country. Despite Life Esidimeni, we have no budget for care for mental illness, but we have a pandemic of mental illness. We have no budget for palliative care for 1 million children in our country, which means that 1 million children are suffering pain that could be managed if money was available or made available. We have no money for COVID communications, and that partly explains our poor vaccine take-up, which will cost us lives, between 20 to 30,000 more lives when the fourth wave of COVID takes off in South Africa. We have investigated and really just scratched the surface of what corruption has cost us in this COVID period. And I want to give just a few examples. The police. Who is policing the police? 1.6 billion rand on PPE. 1.6 billion rand. One company, I won't name it because they're threatening to sue me for defamation, a contract for over 500 million for sanitizers. But we don't know whether those sanitizers have even been approved by the South African Bureau of Standards and the National Regulator for Compulsory Standards. 150 million, the Digital Vibes contract. 150 million. And the SIU says that 90% of that was completely unjustified. And Comrade Jacob, sadly, Gauteng has been the epicenter of much of this corruption. And so I have to say this standing beside you. There are big questions still to be asked about how Gauteng Health Department is spending billions of rands on ICU facilities that were not ready for the first 3 waves of the COVID-19 pandemic. There are questions to be asked about why the Gauteng provincial government in January of this year stopped publishing expenditure disclosure reports that were making it possible for journalists to see what was being spent, where it was being spent, and who were getting the benefits of that money. Those reports have not been published since January. Without those reports, We would not have found out about the 413 million rand that was spent by the Gauteng Education Department on so-called sanitizing of schools. And that is what I'm here to complain about today, which is that we must disabuse ourselves of the notion that corruption is something that ended with the last administration in our government, that corruption is something that is associated only with one faction of the ruling party. Corruption continues apace, and many of the current leaders are implicated or are playing a role in enabling corruption wittingly or unwittingly. And we have to say that it must stop across the board. So my challenge, particularly to Gauteng, and I'm sorry to single out Gauteng, but we are sitting here in this province, and Gauteng has spent the largest amount of money on PPE and on the COVID response. My challenge to them is to say yes or no. Will you open the books again and allow an independent investigation by the media and by civil society to find out exactly what was spent, where and how that money was spent? And will you stop covering up COVID-19 maladministration and potentially COVID-19 corruption? It is killing people. We have seen only the tip of the iceberg. We have to look much, much deeper if we are to get to the bottom of this problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Let me also say that this session was to have been chaired by Cheryl Carolus. She unfortunately was stuck in some other place, and load shedding made it a bit difficult for her to get here. And she was meant to have read out the statement that Keliwe Shivambu will now read. Keliwe works for the DOD. Your, I suppose, maiden speech. Okay, just 1 second, my mistake. A short, very short message, 350.org. My mistake. But over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite. I feel like I'm the person that's in between the last speech and lunch, but here we go. My name is Alia Kaji. I am the public finance campaigner with 350africa.org. And once again, thank you for the invite and to be part of this campaign. I just thought, as the last speaker was talking and posing lots of questions as journalists do, I'd like to thank this campaign for proposing some of the solutions that we can talk about, and something that is particularly important as we speak about climate justice as well. What are the solutions and where do they come from? So excuse me for reading this mostly, but I don't want to mince my words today. So I wanted to start by saying both corruption and the climate crisis are examples of an abuse of power, both examples of what happens when profit is put before people and put before the planet. The injustice of the climate crisis is those at least at fault are those most negatively affected. And those most at fault are most often those with the most power. Developed countries spent centuries exploiting resources through colonialism to develop their own economies with violent shows of power, leaving destruction behind. If we talk locally, as many of us have today, corruption has had a devastating effect on service delivery. Electricity prices have increased 400% through inflated contracts and mismanagement of Eskom. How much more would citizens have to pay for power ships worth over 200 billion rand? Although thousands also die a year after being exposed to dirty and polluting energy. What is the cost and who pays for it? At a household level, dwindling service delivery means increased costs are more likely carried by women and often through unpaid care work, a trend increasing with the impacts of the climate crisis and extreme weather conditions. Time and time again, we see those least at fault carrying the biggest burdens, whether through the impacts of the climate crisis, corruption, or austerity measures cutting public spend. Who benefits while others suffer? We stand with the anti-corruption campaign calling for accountability, transparency, and recovery with integrity, the very principles we rely on for climate justice. We need strong governance and accountable institutions for a just transition away from the climate crisis towards a resilient and sustainable society with no worker or community left behind. We fight for a society where people's voices matter and where their power is felt through deepened democracy. We stand behind people's power, holding entrusted leadership to account, not only for climate, economic, and social justice today, but for generations to come. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you. Kaliwe, over to you to read out the statement, please.
Thank you. Protocols observed. My name is Delmas Shivambu, and I will be reading the press statement on behalf of the Defend Our Democracy campaign. We, the undersigned organizations, urge all who live in South Africa to express their outrage against corruption and capture by supporting the Anti-Corruption Week 2021. Pioneered by the Defend Our Democracy campaign, the initiative will be hosted from the 3rd of December to the 10th of December 2021. The week is a build-up to December 9, which is marked annually across the globe as Anti-Corruption Day. It will culminate on the 10th of December, International Human Rights Day, providing an opportunity to reflect on how corruption affects basic rights. The theme for the week is United in Action Against Corruption and calls for accountability, transparency, and recovery with integrity, particularly in light of COVID-19 corruption. Apart from the health sector, we will be also shining the spotlight on how corruption affects water provision, energy supply, municipal services, and the lives of honest public servants and whistleblowers. Through various activations held during the week, we intend to draw the linkages between corruption and capture and the deteriorating levels of services, and in turn, the lifestyles of ordinary people. Also, unite and mobilize South Africans in demonstrating their opposition to and disapproval of the lack of accountability for corruption and capture and the impunity with which current corruption persists, and demand from government an efficient response to and the implementation of mechanisms against corruption and capture. As South Africa emerges from a local government election in which many citizens chose not to vote, there is a need to rearrange the public around participatory democracy, holding public representatives accountable and playing an active role in advocating for clean and ethical governance. This week aims to prompt that re-engagement through involving communities in anti-corruption awareness work. We are committing to participate in the week by hosting or joining information sessions, pickets, and other forms of visible public activations and awareness drives against corruption, both in the public and private sector. We are calling on you, the public, to do the same by hosting your own anti-corruption activations. These self-initiated activations will form part of the national diary of events in different parts of the country. We encourage you to learn about corruption and teach others about it. We all know that corruption is a problem in South Africa, but we need to understand the sheer extent of it in order to start tackling the issue effectively. We also urge you to report corruption when you come across it. While citizens can report their experiences of corruption in municipalities or local police stations and clinics, public servants in state-owned entities and government departments should demonstrate courage and commitment to our constitutional values by blowing the whistle. We must act against corruption. During the week, various forms of visible public actions against corruption should indicate to government that we will not tolerate empty promises when it comes to dealing decisively with corruption. So, show your outrage against corruption. Go orange, symbolizing the orange overalls that the corrupt must wear in jail. Hang orange banners in your schools, community organizations, in youth clubs, and in sport fields and street polls across the country. In various sectors, consider lunchtime pickets, business integrity training courses, establishing public servants networks to support whistleblowers in state institutions, hosting religious sermons or congregational gatherings against corruption, webinars and seminars that can be aimed at developing new thinking on tackling corruption, movie screenings, book readings against corruption, and workshops on monitoring local government budgets and arts and sports against corruption. Take traditional and social media to create a broader public awareness. It requires society-wide mobilization to begin rooting out corruption and capture that persists at all levels. Let Anti-Corruption Week send a message to those who are corrupt. We are watching you, and we will no longer sit by while you plunder what belongs to the people. To register your Anti-Corruption Week activation, find our online posters and other materials that you can use for the week. And to make your pledge against corruption, you can visit www.defendourdemocracy.co.za and use the hashtag #againstcorruption and tag @4democracySA on Twitter. Details about the upcoming anti-corruption march that is planned for December 5th to the Union Buildings and a civil society lecture to be hosted on the 3rd of December will be shared in due course. Report corruption by calling the Special Investigating Unit's toll-free number on 0800 037 774 or emailing siu@thehotline.co.za. You can furthermore log a report on Corruption Watch on their website. This press statement was signed and endorsed by the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, the Botsotso Assemble, the Center for Good Governance and Social Justice, NPC, Congress of Business and Economies, Corruption Watch, Defend Our Democracy Campaign, the Durban Coalition of the Poor, Freedom Under Law, Media Monitoring Africa, the Tswane Community Development Forum, Organization Undoing Tax Abuse, Legal Resources Center, Market Users Committee, South African Christian Leadership Initiative, the South African Communist Party, Gauteng, South Africa, The Good News, Sign Innovation Solutions, Pty Ltd, the Teddy Bear Foundation for Abused Children, the Free Burma Campaign South Africa, the United Front of Civics, the Uniting Reformed Churches of Strabane, and 350.co, Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, KAISEC, the Johannesburg Institute of Social Services, and also ongoing endorsements, which is the Whiteville Community Action Network, the Star of Crisis Champling, and also the Moral Regeneration Movement and Right to Know. Thank you.
Okay. I know we had planned to finish by 4, but let me open up now for questions, particularly from the media. Anybody? I see a hand out there. I think we just need a mic.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Govind from ENCA. 2 general questions. So I'd like to get the thoughts from Defend Our Democracy on the action taken by Ethel Williams to leave the country and his assertion that the government can't protect him anymore. And what do you actually believe should happen now? Then secondly, this week is being launched as coalition agreements are being negotiated across the country, and often municipal corruption occurs because of horse trading in coalition governments, and we've seen the threat of corruption occurring in coalition governments in 3 metro municipalities over the last 5 years. What kind of concern do you have, if at all, about what's happening this week, or advice to those leaders who are negotiating? Thank you.
Whistleblower one, when you want to take? Okay. Reverend Chikani, you want to deal with the second issue?
Gervin, I think we need to see government step up to the plate with regards to Ethel Williams. We need them to do something about this. We need them to make an offer to Ethel to come back. And we're not talking just government here, we're talking business. This country has lost an extremely important, knowledgeable individual who has so much to offer. And we cannot just sit back and allow him to leave without the efforts to try and bring him back. Now, maybe that ship has already sailed, but the effort needs to be made, a meaningful effort to ensure that at least some options are put on the table for him. Because if we continue to lose people like Ethel Williams, less and less whistleblowers are going to speak up. And we can't afford that in this country. But what we are not seeing is government doing what they should be doing in that regard. He has left because there is no meaningful support for whistleblowers. There's no protection. There's no laws that really substantively help whistleblowers to stand up and do what they have to do. We rely on whistleblowers to fight corruption. And yet the state sits back and just watches the annihilation, the loneliness of whistleblowers, the murder of whistleblowers. We've heard enough. Babita and many others have lost their lives and their livelihoods. So send a strong signal from the presidency and from everybody in the state who should be doing something about corruption by reaching out to Ethel Williams and asking him, what would it take to bring him back and convince him that this country is worth living in and worth fighting for? Okay.
Reverend Chikani, the issue on municipalities, coalitions.
I would like to start from this very matter. I would like I would like to start from this very matter because it's very critical, and those of you who would have read one of my books, the things that can be said, is that when you take a stand, it costs you dearly. And it's not only the people in government who, and my own comrades, who were involved in making sure that even the job I was going to do after, you will remember in the book, after, was also intercepted and a delegation was sent to make sure I don't get the job. Even when I had to go to boards, I won't mention the companies, and they promised to do it and then they back off. And then I couldn't understand this until somebody said, we can't do it because if we do it, we risk our interests if we bring you in our company. So then the companies then fear victimization. That's why in 2010, I had to go back, and I won't mention names, to say, if indeed government is not against me I wasn't looking for a job in government, it's in private sector, and they go to private sector and say, you can't give him the job. If you are not against me, just appoint me in a useless position, announce after cabinet I've been appointed for some useless thing. Then private sector will believe it, that actually you are not against me. It went that far. But it's because I'm Frank Chikani, I can talk to people. But what about the ordinary person who is a whistleblower? No chance. And I think we need to call on the business sector in this country to take a stand and also risk and make sure that people who become victims are taken care of, and not fail to get a job when they are supposed to get it. I'm choosing words that I should use. On the issue of the coalitions, I don't want to go into party politics and defend our democracy. Shouldn't do that. But the point is, coalitions have proved to be unstable, and especially when people do it for convenience, it becomes in the interest of the parties rather than the interest of the people. And when they are done, delivery gets affected in a sense. And so it is us as the people, again, is the defend our democracy. It's us as the people of South Africa who must take a stand. And I did a tweet on this matter, and I got attacked. I said, we as the people of South Africa, citizens, must actually organize ourselves in a way that nobody in politics will be able to commit corruption without us knowing. We'll get professionals, look at the budget, look at the money moving through, look at the tenders, put a magnifying glass on every detail. And then they say, no, but you want us to do government's job. I am saying that if we don't do it ourselves, government is not going to do it because it gets captured and serves other interests. It's us who must liberate our own government. We must liberate the politicians. We must liberate the entities of government that are being corrupted and captured. I've taken too long, but I think it's important to realize that unless we as the people of South Africa, that's how we won against the apartheid system. It's we as the people. It's not the people in power who will do that.
Thanks, Reverend Chikane. So on whistleblowers, there was a delegation at the Zondo Commission handed over a memo to a representative of the presidency. If I'm correct, it was the minister in the presidency, Mondli Gungubele, who received that. That memo, I think, spelled out a range of requirements made by whistleblowers that needed to be responded to by the presidency. Amongst those calls is the establishment of a dedicated unit to deal with the issues of whistleblowers, the protection and so forth, to look at other legislative changes that are required. We take courage from the fact that there is a whistleblower institution, whistleblower house, and other whistleblower-led campaigns and organizations that have been initiated in the last few months. And many of those have also taken their stories into book form today to share, I think, their experiences. Obviously, they didn't get to the point where Ethel is, that he now feels that he has to leave. But I think, Wayne, you are right. We need to understand the full details of why he had to leave. Hopefully he will share, now that he's wherever he is, and if he's safe enough to do so, the details of the threats that he was receiving, because those would give us an understanding of what needs to be done for him in order for him to come back here. But I think every day there are whistleblowers across this country who make use of all kinds of reporting mechanisms on a daily basis. And on the basis of their reports, all kinds of actions are slowly being taken by various institutions that I am aware of. It is work that needs to be done. As much as Ethel's actions might cause people to think twice, we would urge civil servants and public servants in particular to in fact redouble their efforts in honor of Babita and others who have died. The coalitions offer opportunities for transparency, offer opportunities for watching over each other. As much as they pose dangers, there are also opportunities. As a campaign, I think we will have to begin to figure out how we maximize usage of those opportunities and press for maximum transparency and disclosure of particularly financial information. Next, any other questions? Can you just get the mic?
All right. Thank you. My name is Skungo Jebe, a member of the Right to Know and a public policy researcher. So my question to Dr. Chikane is, seemingly we are bound to be ruled by collaboration government, which is previously has been a dismal failure. Now, seemingly that those that are in power are serving their own personal interests. So our constitution doesn't say anything about how they should govern themselves. And could it be possible that we develop a certain legislation that will safeguard against any sorts of compromisation of the citizens? Because that also compromises service delivery. You know, we have seen that in the last 5 years, there's nothing that is happening in the municipalities. All the municipalities out of 248, only 5 of them that have passed the AG, auditor's report. So can we just deal with that? Because citizens are just compromised. Then point number 2 is, is it possible that we can have a transparent procurement system? I think Premier of Gauteng, David Makura, has done that. And then to see the notions of compliance so that we just avoid this bloodshed unnecessarily. Thank you.
First one, we obviously all need to do much more analysis of this, and at some point I think the campaign will be able to respond to that. The issues of procurement you've answered. The demands for transparent procurement has been made, initially complied to, at least with regards to PPE, but then stopped. I think that now needs to be taken up almost as an immediate call by this collective of people in the Defend Our Democracy campaign. Your hand was up. Sir.
Linda Mnisi from Newsroom Africa. Mine is just a follow-up question to Govan's first question. I mean, looking at Athol Williams's situation, does this mark the beginning of losing the fight to protecting whistleblowers for civil society organizations? And does this mean that it is also failing in ensuring that the law is, of course, improved to protect whistleblowers? I know it's one of the things that you have been fighting for a very long time. Thank you.
The question might have been answered. No, it doesn't. There are reporting mechanisms, and if you take the scale of reports to Corruption Watch, to OUTA, to the SIU on a daily basis, my sense is that they have increased manifold in this year in particular. Every entity in government has an ethics hotline today that in the annual reports, you will begin to see the flood of usage of those kinds of mechanisms. Obviously, there are individuals like Ethel, Babita, and others who go beyond what I think ordinary public servants do. Their issues, however, requires a different kind of response and a different kind of relationships from the authorities. We would obviously need to understand the full details of Ethel's circumstances to be able to respond appropriately. But in general, I think civil society has pointed to the weaknesses in the legislation, the weaknesses in terms of support mechanisms, both from financial, human, and others, that I think has been recorded thus far. Okay, Wayne, you covered. Fine. Can I take one last one? No? If not, we will conclude with a, I see Wally here. Is Wally not doing the poem live? Is it a pre-recorded one? Okay, now just you'll have to explain your photo shoot. I don't understand this.
Okay, so we're going to get the speakers just to stand with these boards. I know that it may be a bit cramped for a full group photograph, so we can take it in batches if that's okay. and the screening will take place at the same time. So thank you so much, Comrade Wali, for doing the screening.
Oh, Africa, my Africa.
So let's first just do the screening, Zakira. Let's do the screening first, otherwise it's going to interrupt with it. Just 2 minutes, okay?
Oh, Africa, my Africa. The economy is rattling and coughing like a helpless car slowing down about to stop. It has been very, very quiet here lately, so quiet. Can you hear the leaves sing and dance? Never have I lived in such a quiet world. Listen, it is as quiet as if you walk among trees which splash and dapple their colorful fleshy fruit to the sky as they stand on termite-infested stems in an ordered line. The economy, as you think, lockdown. Look at the long queues and listen. It is silent. Footsteps leaving unseen footprints to somewhere around them. People walking inch by inch, not looking at each other, not talking after lockdown. Listen. The quiet footsteps like the raindrops of a drizzling rain. They are there, quiet and present. Try as we can, but we can't see or hear them. The human race is still as the world spins on its needle. We are still. As this thing walks quietly and we cannot see it. Its footsteps are the tap dance of our time. We have been still. It feels like we have come to the edge. Hopefully, Africa, my Africa, you cannot get to and be still at the edge of the world.
While he's still here. Okay, there's a request for the speakers to line up here, Zakira in front. And other members of the campaign. Prof. Esak? Leon, don't go.
No.
We want to get your photograph here so we have proof of your attendance. Randera, join us here.
Where must we stand?
There you go.
Orders. You give us orders, we do. You tell us what to do, we do. What? Okay.
You want me the other side?
Reverend Chikani, you slightly challenged in terms of height.
We're going to meet, my friend.
Yeah.
I've got a meeting with you.
Popo, you used to be tall. Come in front. Wayne, you can go to the back. You. Yeah, I think you should come in here. And Klantla, I don't think, unless you're going to stand on your toes there.
So where do you want me to stand?
No, you're fine there.
Stand on the chair.
Do it quickly, otherwise.
But shouldn't we take?
I must do distancing.
No, that would be more complex if you take off the masks that you can pay.
Right. 1, 2, 3.
Down with corruption. Banze with corruption.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Are you a corruption? Corruption watch.
Yes.
Yeah,